approximately 1 a.m. Yesterday, police were called to the area of Plum Park outside of the Fulton Bar for a disturbance and shots being fired. The Lancaster Safety Coalition was able to spot a male firing a weapon, gave a description to police that were responding to it. Police followed him around the corner in the area 500 block of Plum in the rear. At that point, the male had entered into a residence. Police heard him coming down the steps, yelled at him numerous times. He was observed with a weapon in his hand. Male refused to respond to the commands, and one officer fired and struck the male twice. The male was transported to Lancaster General Hospital. The male's been identified as Manuel Abrante III, 27 years old, Lancaster City resident. He's being charged with person not to possess firearms, aggravated assault, recklessly endangering another person, and resisting arrest. The subject had a .45 caliber semi-automatic handgun that was recovered at the scene. What happened here in front of a crowded bar where a male fired 2 shots into the air and then fired, leveled the gun at a vehicle leaving the area. Apparently he had some sort of disturbance, disagreement with other patrons. We're very pleased that the cameras were able to capture that. As you can well imagine, officers responding to that scene were able to know that not only was there a male armed with a weapon, but that he had already used it. So this obviously gave them the information they needed before they arrived at the scene. Fortunately, no citizens or police officers were hurt. There were several people outside of the bar at that time that could have been struck by stray gunfire, as well as the officers that responded that actually captured him at the residence around the corner. I'll answer any questions at this time.
Can you talk about just having these cameras here? There's 165 cameras here in Lancaster. Just kind of talk about that resource. It's almost like a minority report in that way. You saw the crime before it kind of happened, right?
Right. Well, I know in the past that there's been some criticism of cameras, not just here, but in other parts of our country. Overwhelmingly, as far as from a law enforcement perspective, as well as many citizens, this is one of the reasons why we like having these cameras. A lot of calls for service come into county dispatch, and most of the time you have no idea what you're responding to. In this case, not only did the call come out, somebody firing shots, but they're able to physically see that and see that type of behavior. And before the officers arrive, they're allowed to, they know what they're getting involved, what they're walking into. And that's, in the life of these cameras, that's happened numerous times where officers are informed and given an accurate description of the person they're looking for. If you take the scenario without the camera last night, the calls would have still come into county dispatch, and with that many people, a nice night, several people out in the street, you don't know who's a bad guy, who's a good guy, and quite possibly that subject would have gotten away because the cameras were able to point the police in the direction that he was fleeing. And this is somebody that you certainly want to get off the street that would fire a weapon into the air and level it off at a car, which literally could have struck anybody. I'm sorry.
Can you give us more information about the disturbance itself? Was he fighting with a girlfriend, with just a group of people?
Apparently some group of people, some disturbance, some disagreement, and apparently he felt the need to fire a weapon, and he did.
And this was outside the bar?
Outside, yes.
Were those same people inside the bar earlier?
That I'm not aware of, but this is the location where all this happened in front of. And I want to make perfectly clear, this individual is the cause of the weapon being fired.
Could you explain to us the relevance of, sorry, the apartment building that he was found? Was that his apartment?
Apparently, that's where he's been staying.
And what was the location of that exactly?
On the 500 block of Plum Street.
Does he have a previous criminal record that we know of? Or
Well, as you know, we never discussed that in the press conference. I'm sure you never get that.
So he was not allowed to be in possession of a semi-automatic weapon?
Well, it's one of the charges that we leveled against him.
What's your reaction when, your officers responded to a call that he was already shooting a gun and it ended up being a .45 caliber semi-automatic weapon and they were up against him?
In this profession, police officers know the kind of dangers they could possibly face, and this being one of the most dangerous situations that some officers may never have to run into in their career. You have a male who's already fired a weapon, who has a pretty dangerous 45 caliber semi-automatic handgun. It's a pretty serious weapon, and literally he still has it when the police confront him. That's the most dangerous of situations you could think of. And this is why police departments, just like ours, constantly train, because you want to make sure that these officers are prepared when they run into a situation like that. Unfortunately, they acted appropriately.
Was he pointing the gun at the officer?
Yes, he was raising the gun at the officer. The officers were telling him to drop it, and he didn't.
what's that window of do we shoot this person or not shoot this person? Or
Well, it's a very small window. I mean, it's when I say split second, that's probably an over exaggeration, and that's why the training is so crucial. And years of training experience, what helps an officer be able to react the way they're supposed to. In a situation like last night, had there been any hesitation on the part of the officer, it could have cost him his life.
Was he shot in the buttocks?
Yeah, his injuries are in the lower torso, 2 wounds, I believe.
On the backside, though?
Yes, at least one is.
What's the protocol for that officer who fired those shots?
Well, obviously, as in any police shooting, obviously being investigated, witnesses interviewed, and that's being done. We'll also, make sure the officer is fine. There's usually a window of several days before an officer is put back out on the street, and that's pretty standard.
So we would call that administrative leave right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just
How is
generally
your
after
officer?
shooting, there's a window before you go back out on the street.
How's your officer doing?
I spoke to him this morning, and he's doing very well.
would you say that he acted in accordance with?
Absolutely.
Say that again. How do you think he acted?
Oh, she asked me, what was your question?
Sorry, how do you think he acted? I mean, whether it was correct or not, or?
Yes, he acted appropriately, which he's been trained for, and like he said earlier in the conference, we're just happy that I was able to speak to him in front of us.
Is the suspect still in the hospital right now?
Yes.
What sort of time would he face, or how serious are the charges that he faces?
Well, that I can't really answer. I mean, he's looking at some serious charges, and I guess he'll have to deal with that in the court system.
Can you spell his name for me?
Sure. It is A-B-R-A-N-T-E.
I'm sorry, again, sorry.
A-B-R-A-N-T-E.
And Emmanuel?
Manuel.
Emmanuel, so
M-A-N-U-E-L.
We spoke to some neighbors there. They said that a lot of nurses and doctors are moving into this neighborhood because of an LGH program. They're trying to make this as good a block as they can. They were kind of disheartened that something like this would happen there. What's your reaction to having this type of shooting on the street?
Unfortunately, there's individuals in our community that feel the only way to resolve a dispute is by pulling a weapon out, firing it at somebody, whether it's in the air or leveled at a car, and they feel that's an appropriate way to respond. And unfortunately, no matter where you live, something like that can happen. If an individual decides that they can either just, hand out street justice or for whatever reason. And why somebody would fire a weapon like that, I can't answer that. But I can say certainly, that would upset any neighborhood. But, the only person to blame for firing this weapon is the individual that we arrested. And it shouldn't discourage any resident. I mean, there's things that happen in any neighborhood, anywhere, that will make neighbors uneasy. But in this case, this person, just took it upon himself to disrupt that neighborhood and also make people feel uneasy. But that's an isolated incident that happened and it's over with. He's been apprehended, and it certainly shouldn't discourage people from going about their normal business.
We saw that it was a school zone. Was that a school zone that he fired at?
Well, as you can imagine, Lancaster City proper is only about 4.5 square miles, so pick a street anywhere in our city, and it's close to a school. So, all the more reason. I mean, obviously, when something like that occurs in the daytime, the first concern are children at school. But at nighttime, the rest of the neighborhood, everybody else that has a reasonable expectation to sit on their steps or sleep and go to bed without hearing gunfire. So
Does that increase the charges, though? Like, because I think it even said anyone with possession of a gun on the sign.
yeah, well, again, I know we're charging him, and I can't speak for how the process will be in the court system, and that'll certainly happen very soon for this individual. And time will tell what will happen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, folks.